The following will describe the high-level process used by Harris County to enforce payment of delinquent property taxes. When a property owner does not pay property taxes for several years, the county or any other taxing authority will likely file a suit against the property owner seeking payment of all taxes due. The county will also file suit against all other parties that have an interest in the property. These parties will include, but are not limited to, all owners of record, any mortgage holder such as a bank, and any other lien holders. Please note that in many cases it may take a year or more before the trial begins. During this time, the owners still have all rights and privileges to the property, allowing them to sell it to pay the property taxes. The suit will be dismissed by the county if the taxes are paid by anyone. Once the suit goes to trial, the owners have the opportunity to have their day in court, and the judge will make a ruling. If the judgment is in favor of the county, an order to sell will soon be issued, and the property will be sent for sale at the tax auction. In many cases, the time between the judgment and the property appearing at the auction could easily be over 1 year. All the way up to the day of the auction, the owner can pay off the taxes and the accrued costs and have the judgment released. The tax foreclosure auction takes place the first Tuesday of every month at the Family Law Center in downtown Houston. If you decide that you would like to purchase a property at the auction, here is what you should do before, during, and after the auction. The first thing you should do is purchase a foreclosure list from www.realacquisitions.com and begin to review these properties as potential buys at the auction. Have a well-defined criteria to locate properties that make sense in your investment portfolio. Examples would be single-family homes appraised under $200,000 in a particular zip code. You should always drive by the properties and view them for yourself. A property may be listed by the county as having a home on the property, but your inspection of the property may reveal that the house is no longer there and may not have been there for years, or that the house is in extremely poor condition and would require many thousands of dollars to repair. You will, of course, wish to view the surroundings of the property as well. Are there train tracks or a large electrical substation directly behind the home? Is there a salvage yard or a loud manufacturing plant near the home? On the positive side, are there schools or supermarkets? And so on and so forth. Next, have a title company prepare a title report for all the properties in question. Compare the title report for each property to the parties mentioned in the certificate of service in the judgment for taxes. The parties mentioned in the judgment should match those with an interest in the property mentioned in the title company report. Should you find a party in the title company report that is not mentioned in the lawsuit, this is a red flag. There is a possibility that the auction may be undone after the fact. Next, work with an experienced realtor and reliably establish the true value of the property. Be sure you know how much the property is worth so that you can choose a price that you are willing to pay. Real Acquisition subscribers have access to the latest sales comp reports to help you make that judgment. Now you can get ready for the auction as you have a well-defined list of properties that you want to acquire. You start by registering for the auction by getting a bidder's number and submitting a certificate of no tax delinquency. You can get a temporary bidder's number on the day of the auction as well. Next, you must understand that you will need to be prepared to pay cash on the day of the auction should you be the successful bidder for a property. You need to have bank checks, also called cashier's checks, on your person when you bid and you must pay for your property at the time your successful bid is concluded. The bank check should be made out in different denominations, much like currency. A recommended practice is to have a single check equal to the minimum bid, with additional funds in cashier's checks or cash. These checks can be made payable to yourself, and you may sign off these to the county if need be. If you do not have exact change, and you have to pay more for the property than your bid, the difference will be refunded to you by the county, though this, of course, will take some time. Next, you need to understand that just because the property appears on the foreclosure list does not by any means guarantee it will be available for sale on the day of the auction. The owner or an investor purchasing the property from the owner still has time to pay the property taxes and have this property removed from the foreclosure list. Because of this, you should pick out numerous properties on the list that interest you and be prepared to bid on more than one property at the auction. Next, you may wish to call on the day of the auction the office of the constable who is conducting the sale of the properties in which you are interested to verify that your property is still being offered for sale. Similar information can also be obtained by calling the law firm handling the auction. Real Acquisitions subscribers for most properties will get emails as the status of the property changes. You must also consider that buying properties at the auction does involve some risk. Here are some things that can go wrong. 1. You may find that all of the properties in which you are interested have been removed from the auction at the last minute. 2. You must be prepared to hold this property for as long as 2 years. In Texas, the previous owner's rights to a property do not end at the auction. They have the right of redemption, which means that the previous owners have the right to force the successful bidder to sell the property back to them at a predetermined price, explained shortly. It would be foolish to purchase a property at the auction and then to immediately invest more of your own money into this property before the redemption rights expire. The previous owner may not have to pay for the improvements on the property. The exception to this may be the expenses made to secure the property. 3. Here is how the right of redemption works. Someone successfully purchases a property at the auction. In time, they will get a deed from the county making their ownership official. This is called the constable's deed, and it could be filed 1 to 2 months after the auction. It is from the date this deed is filed that redemption rights begin. If the property in question was the previous owner's homestead, they have 2 years in which they can redeem the property. The homeowner must pay a 25% penalty if they redeem the property during the first year, or a 50% penalty during the second year. The redemption period for a non-homestead property, including vacant lots and commercial properties, is 6 months from the date the constable deed got filed. 4. It may also be possible that there was an oversight or an error that occurred during the foreclosure proceedings of the property. If the oversight or problem is not found until after the auction is already completed, it is possible that the auction will be reversed and the foreclosure proceedings will begin anew. If you've invested your own money into the property, this is obviously not a desirable outcome. The price paid for the property at the auction will, of course, be returned to the investor, but not any of the other money invested in the property. These are lost investments. Number 5. If you purchase a single-family home, you may find that you have unwanted tenants in the property. You may have to file a suit in court to evict these people, which takes time and money, and these people can choose to communicate their opinion of you and destroy your home as they leave. Number 6, if you did not have the opportunity to inspect the property before you bid on it, never a good idea, you may find that the property requires much more in the way of repairs than you anticipated. Number 7, You may also do everything right and still lose the bid at the auction to an inexperienced investor who didn't do their own due diligence and bid far too much for the property. Buying a property at the auction is not for everybody and should only be attempted by experienced investors or by those who have done their due diligence. There are far better ways of acquiring investment properties with delinquent taxes. This topic is covered in other instructional videos. You should also take the following actions after the auction if you are the winning bidder. Number 1, track down the previous owner if possible and have them sign over their rights to you. This will prevent them or a sneaky investor from exercising the right of redemption. Number 2, pay off any property taxes that have accrued since the tax judgment was rendered. This has important legal implications and will greatly limit the ability of others to challenge the validity of the auction. Number 3, if the property needs a great deal of work and you cannot find the previous owner, you would be foolish to invest your own money to repair this property. As a responsible property owner, you should secure the property and make sure that it is not a nuisance to the neighborhood. You should also note that the city can do this on your behalf, but they will place a lien on the property for this work that will far exceed the cost of performing the work. Number 4, monitor the filing of your deed by the constable's office. Make sure that your deed gets filed as soon as possible. The longer your deed takes to get filed, the longer the rights of the previous owner will last.